Hey, welcome back to this month's episode of B2B Outbound. This month is all about the power of your network. I'm joined by the wonderful Mac Reddin in this episode. He's the founder and CEO of Commsor, a company that helps B2B companies leverage their network to get better revenue generation. You should find in this episode all about why he started the agency and why he's decided to focus on GTN, go to network, how best to leverage your network for more predictable revenue, and what key metrics we should be tracking to make sure you formalize that network approach. Hopefully a useful episode. Enjoy. Welcome to the pod, Mac.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We've known each other for a while. I've followed you across socials, podcasts, everywhere else I see you. But for those of you who don't know, who's Mac Reddin and what you're all about?
Oh man, it feels like such a loaded question. Like, do you want the philosophical answer or the business answer? I've been a founder for 14 years now, so I've pretty much never had a normal job. So I'm a builder more than I would consider myself a CEO or a founder. It just means that building, I think, sometimes ends up turning into being a CEO or a founder.
Yeah.
I live in Denmark, expat from the US, as you can hear from my voice. Yeah, I just honestly best way to describe me is I like building stuff. I'm the kind of person that when I stop working on Commsor, I take a break to work on side projects and other things or whatever.
Very, very cool. And you mentioned it there, but Commsor, tell us a bit about it. Your current business, your current project.
We call ourselves a go-to-network platform because if you didn't invent a term, you're not a real B2B company, right? Essentially, what we mean by go-to-network is we basically help sales teams. Basically, we kind of add like a warm intro check before they go to outbound. So before they make a cold call, before they send a cold email, we help find, is there a partner, a customer, an investor, an advisor, an executive who can maybe open that door to that target account before you.
I mean, we all know that warm introductions perform way better than cold outreach or marketing content, all that sort of good stuff. So it's like a no-brainer, I guess. How did it come about?
Yeah, so we're a bit of a weird company. We started as I guess almost 5 years ago now. We started as a community company, which is where the COMM in our name comes from. We were building community-led growth software. So we were helping B2B companies kind of measure the impact of their community initiatives on sales and marketing. So it's a pretty short line. I think it's pretty community to network. There's a lot of overlap in that. And when we pivoted about 18 months ago, it kind of just felt like a logical leap. And it really was a classic case of building a tool that we wished we'd had ourselves. With the previous iteration of the business. And we looked at same thing, we looked at our deals in the past and it was they were all, the warm intros, the referrals were always the best deals, but it was very often a thing where it was if it happens, it happens, but there's no system or way for us to go get more of them. So, we'll fall back to outbound and things like that. So yeah, short version, it was building a tool to solve the pain point we had ourselves.
Right. And was the plan originally, I'm always interested, obviously you started the business, I guess, dare we say it, pre-COVID and whatever else, but was it originally to build an in-person community or did you pivot to platform and solution because of the digital change?
No, it was always meant to be digital. And so we registered our company as a real company the day the US did the EU travel ban for COVID. Okay. So it was we were basically we weren't a pre-COVID company. We literally started when the COVID shit basically started.
Okay, nice.
So we were born in that. I remember those first few months when everyone was like, oh shit, the market's going to die. No one knows what's going on. And then it turned out it kind of went the other direction. But for those first 3 or 4 months, we're did we just pick the worst time to start a company? What are we doing?
Yeah, particularly a community company when no one's connected, networking in it.
Yeah, it turned out actually that the community stuff actually accelerated pretty aggressively during the pandemic as everyone rushed to online events and online community and Slack groups and forums and things like that.
It's using your network, tapping into referrals and people leveraging relationships. It's just, everyone talks about people buy from people. It's the way business has been done for 20 odd years. But, we see so often nowadays, sales teams, SDR teams, young, hungry sales reps. It's just all about the instant gratification, the instant now, opposed to those long lasting relationships. I had even here at Punch, one of our young client service teams, they're great, been managing a project for a couple of years and it's all been digital. It's all been Zoom calls, Google calls, because they're based in 2 different countries, but also it's been like that for the last couple of years, and that's all they know. But I jumped on a call recently with a client. I was like, hey, how's things? How's your husband? How's the wedding? How's everything else? Because I've known her, I've been to a wedding, I've been to, and The
Yeah.
CS person said to me afterwards, "How the hell do you know all that?" I'm like, "How do you not know all that?" Like, it's because I think digital is so surface level when it's done of a just kind of a Zoom call or
Yeah.
whatever else.
I saw someone say once that the digital world and social media has made it way easier for us all to have breadth of network, right? Like we all know probably more people than our grandparents or great grandparents ever did in their whole life.
Yeah,
But it's made us a lot worse at depth of network. So we know way more people, but we know way less people well.
yeah, that's really interesting. So just taking a step back to what you said, GTN, everyone's talking about go to market,
Yeah.
GTM, and you mentioned, coined this phrase, go to network, GTN. Well, deep down, like obviously go to network makes sense. Everyone get it at surface level. What is it? What really is it? And I think you coined the phrase network develop instead of SDRs, network development
Yeah.
reps. What?
Starting with go to network, it's a mindset. It's a collection of things that aren't necessarily new. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like what's old is new again. Because when I talk to people who used to be sales reps in the 80s or 90s, like pre-internet, they're like, yeah, like this network motion is how I sold. You build
Yeah,
relationships, you have a Rolodex, things like that. But really, go to network. We think about it as two halves: network creation and network activation. I think a lot of times I've seen quite a few people say, "Oh, go to network. It's just an intro process. Just how do you ask people for intros?" It's like, oh, that's a part of it. But if you never give into the network, if you never build the network, you're going to run out of people to ask for intros pretty quickly.
yeah,
So network creation is things like building partnerships, customer advocacy programs, community, social selling, content, building your LinkedIn presence, like all these things that if you think about like a lot of traditional go to market, it's very much push driven, right? It's like, how do I push things out into the market? Network creation is how do I pull parts of the market to me and around me? And then network activation is, okay, once I've pulled these people into my sphere of influence, how do I make sure that value happens, right? How do I get intros, drive referrals, co-sell and co-market with partners? And a lot of times people seem to forget about the network creation piece. They really get it because, of course, like if you're a salesperson, you just care about the network activation piece. Like you
yeah.
said, the short-term gratification of like, I want deals now. But true go-to-network requires this like symbiotic flywheel of creation and activation that builds on itself.
Yeah, it makes sense. What's the best way to make it more predictable or kind of long term?
I don't think it is a perfectly predictable thing. And that's exactly why a lot of people are afraid of investing in it because it's
Mm.
not this perfectly like I put $1 in, I get $2 out. It's one of those things that I will say, like if you talk to people that have built networks and have built communities around themselves, they will always say that they're glad they did it, right? Nobody ever regrets having a
Yeah,
bigger, better, badder network. So it's like a lot of it starts with this mindset shift. And then I have this graphic I always like to show people where I think a lot of sales reps, they think in this binary closed won, closed lost. You think about most sales tools are designed around like that's the outcome, right? In your CRM, either you close win or you close lose the deal.
yeah,
That's it. But there's this whole world of opportunity in between those two options where someone might not buy right now, but they change jobs and they buy, or they refer someone for you, or they become a future hire or a future partner or a friend, right? Like that's an option too, right? So just like having a network creation mindset, which is one thing. How do you define that? I don't really know. It's hard. It's not a checklist you can follow. It's sort of a thing you just kind of have to figure out what that means for you and your space and your industry because it's going to be a little different for everyone.
we've seen a few examples of it recently where I think certain salespeople, particularly, and when again maybe they're not educated on this is a tactic or a strategy, but they're very short-minded of the here and now. We lost a pitch recently, and it happens not very often, but we
Yeah.
lost a pitch. I just said appreciate the feedback. Can I take any feedback? What? Appreciate your time. Good luck. I'll check in 3 months. And their response was, I appreciate you being so nice about it. Some of your competitors weren't so nice about losing them.
It's not worth burning those bridges, right? Like
Yeah,
that person might have picked a different client and in 6 months they're having a terrible experience and they come back to you, right? So it's
yeah,
like network creation is all about just being that person they think of whenever the timing's right. Because you know what? The timing's not going to be right with 100% of people, no matter how good of a salesperson you are.
yeah. Agreed. I think it's a mindset or certain type of person,
Yeah.
but we all know that SDRs, salespeople, AEs, they're a certain type of person. It's not always what your CV looks like. It's not about your skill set. It's about that.
Yeah.
Do you have that tenacity, that ability? Do you find the same with good networkers? They've got to have something about them.
My gut reaction to that sort of question is always to say yes. But then I always I think about myself. I am a hardcore antisocial introvert, right? Like people who are like, really? Like you're always on LinkedIn, you're doing videos, you're on podcasts, you go to events. I'm like, I am not, I'm not a very social person, right? So I think I don't fit into the stereotype of what people would consider a good networker. It comes down to like letting yourself be yourself. And like that's one thing. What is a good networker? It's different for everyone, right? And like just like sales, you're not going to be the kind of networker that everybody wants to hang out with, right? Some people are like the social butterfly, life of the party, can go become friends with anyone. Like we have a sales rep on our team who's the kind of guy who can go to like an event and he just walks around the floor and he's like best friends with 100 people by the end of the day. And you're like,
Yeah.
how did you do that, right? Whereas like for me, like I think that my style of networking really comes down to just like actual caring. It reminds me of, have you seen Ted Lasso? Remember the scene with the dart scene and he's like, be curious, not judgmental.
Yeah.
A lot of it comes down to just like actually giving a shit. And it's a thing you can't fake, right? You can't just tell a sales rep, oh yeah, checklist item, care. Like either you kind of do or you don't. So a lot of it comes down to just like, for me, it's about, I'm genuinely interested. Like, I want to know what makes you tick. What's fun? What do you do outside of work, right? Like, there's things you can connect on beyond just like being a good rep or being a good social person.
Yeah, it's tough, and look, you said it's also putting the reps in, I think, as well. Getting used to it. So I saw your post
Yeah.
recently about LinkedIn's tough, being consistent on LinkedIn, but if it's not natural to you or it's not your skill set, then yeah, it's about just kind of going about outside your comfort zone sometimes.
Yeah.
Um,
And you have to figure out, like, if you told me 2 years ago I would be active on LinkedIn and people would consider me like a micro influencer on LinkedIn, they'd be like, yeah, all right, cool, whatever you say. It took me a few months, but I figured a system for myself. And yeah, sometimes I'm more active than not, but it's just like, once again, it's like, how do you get better at cold emailing? You do it and you learn. How do you get better at cold calling? You do it and you learn. How do you get better at network creation? You do it and you learn, right? You're not going to be
yeah,
perfect on day one.
I guess what for anyone starting out, I want to do something other than just a basic. Cool, I don't ask for referrals. Actually, we should put
Yeah.
a set process in place. What are some of the mistakes that people are doing when they kind of build out an actual strategy around referrals or programs?
I think the biggest mistake is just not having a strategy. I think
Yeah.
I talked to a lot of sales and marketing people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we like they know referrals and intros are often the best deals. Their data shows it." But they're like, "Yeah, they happen when they happen." It's like nobody like right? Like at the end of the day, the best strategy to get more referrals is to deliver an incredible product or service, right? Like that true organic word of mouth, like you can only fake it as far as you want, right? You can only pay people or incentivize people so far because at the end of the day, the reason a referral or a warm intro does work so much better than other systems is because there's a usage of social capital to transfer trust. And at a certain point, no matter how much of an incentive you put in front of someone, they will not be willing to put their social capital on the line for you if they feel like it's going to reflect negatively on themselves.
I think we learned it the hard way over probably years of lost wasted opportunities. But to your point, CS teams or whoever they're too scared to ask. They're not. I think also the
Yeah.
discount we find is again we're slightly different at Punch because all our CS teams have been SDRs. They've all been from the sales
Yeah.
outbound, but a lot of CS teams generalizing are not salespeople. They're not hunters. They're not proactive. So actually, the thought of them going, I've actually got to go outbound and ask my client for a referral is pretty daunting. Some of these introvert type personalities.
Yeah. And I've spoken to reps who are, they're totally happy making 100 cold calls or sending 100 emails to get one meeting. But then you ask them to ask three people for intros, and they're like, yeah, but what if one of them says no? Worst case, they email you and tell you to fuck off, and you're like, oops, sorry. Like that's really the
Yeah,
worst case, right? But if I ask you for an intro and you're like, oh, Mac, I don't want to do that, it's like, oh shit, I'm gonna just hurt our relationship, right? There is a social dynamic at
yeah.
play that isn't as easy as just like tell people to ask for intros. Like you have to have this ability to sort of like identify when the right moment is. But just like a CSM has to be able to like read a customer and understand and read between the line, there's
Yeah.
this art to figuring out like when's the right time for me to ask Chris for an intro, right? If I just in the middle of this went, hey, by the way, Chris, sidebar, do you know anyone who would love Commsor? I would love an intro. You're gonna be like, yo, what the hell? This is not the time or the place to do this. But maybe after this, I could do it. And be like, hey, we're done recording. This was great. By the way, if you know someone I should talk to, I'd appreciate it. It can be as simple as just dropping that simple ask into a conversation. You don't have to complicate it with a process.
Yeah, agreed. I think so. We now tell clients up front we have a kickoff meeting, and in that kickoff deck is at the end of the deck. Hey, just to let you know, we're an agency. One of our best source of growth is referrals. We've got to do a good job.
Yeah,
We're not going to ask you for another 3 6 months, but we will come asking. It's just to set
yeah,
expectations that there's no awkward. Oh, should I ask? Shouldn't I ask? We told you we're going to up front.
yeah.
It's now the right
It's
time.
it's as simple as asking sometimes. People who buy from a referral are like 30 to 40% more likely themselves to make a referral. And I think it's one
Wow.
thing, it's just the awareness of like, I'm not thinking about if I'm your customer, I'm not thinking about your business 24/7. I'm thinking about my business, right? So even if I want to make a referral, even if I know someone to make a referral to, the chance that I just on my own think, oh shit, I should totally refer John to Chris is very, very
Yeah.
low. But if I've purchased through a referral, there is this sort of like built in, like, oh yeah, I bought through referral. So like the referralness is just naturally, subconsciously there. And so we often tell our customers that there are three types of people in your network who will make referrals and intros for you. And they're sort of like in a way kind of tiered. And I often say like if you don't have tier one, don't go to tier two. If you don't have tier two, don't go to tier three. Tier one is those who will just do it unprompted. The
Yeah.
super fans who are just like, hey, without even having a formal system, without you ever asking me, I love Punch, you should go buy Punch. Done. That's like that usually is the sign that like you've built a service that's good enough that a referral system will actually work.
Yeah.
Then you have the second tier, which is they would love to make referrals for you. But like I said earlier, they're not thinking about your business 24/7. The chance that they're going to think of someone to refer to you on their own will is low. But if you ask them for the referral, and better yet, if you make it specific, saying, hey, Mac, can you refer specifically this person to me?
Yeah.
They would love to do it. You just have to do a little bit of the work for them. And then the third group is those who will make referrals if you give them an incentive to. And this is like referral partners, affiliates, like you'll give them a cut or whatever.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think people make the mistake. They jump straight to like, cool, let's launch an affiliate program. Let's go for 3. And it's like, okay, but have you tried? Are you getting one already? Do you have options to try 2? Like jumping straight to paid referrals, because it can work. And I'm not against paid referrals, but a paid referral, we have seen they have a lower conversion rate and a lower success rate than true organic referrals because
Mm.
the transfer of trust isn't quite as high when there's an incentive. It's still
Yeah.
better than a cold call or an email, but if you can get organic, why not go for that?
I've never thought about it because again, everyone's got referral schemes in place or kickbacks
Yeah.
or So yeah, that's an interesting point, interesting take.
I
Uh,
would also say that an incentive or a reward will feel even better if it's not expected, right?
yeah, and I think little things like that are super important. Like we've got to, standardize, it's processize, which is probably not the best way to do it, but anyone who refers us, even if we don't win business off the back of it, just a
Yeah.
thanks, a quick box of cookies, quick bottle of wine, like you said, just
Yeah.
to say thanks for thinking of us, because they didn't have to go out of the way and
Yeah.
do that. And guess what? They're probably going to do it another time if in the
That's
future.
great. Yeah, I can't tell you how often I talk to people who are like, "Oh yeah, I referred someone to Punch," and then I never heard from them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think you talked in one of your posts recently about actually these small niche events, getting to know people better, is a much better way to build proper relationships. Why? What
Yeah,
is it about them that you think is different?
I think it goes back to what I said earlier around like depth versus breadth, right? Like a
Yeah,
conference, you can go meet 200 people at a conference in 2 days, no problem. But how many of them are you gonna like really get to know and have lasting conversations with, right? Because you were
yeah,
one of 100 conversations they had that day, right? Like you're not getting any substance out of those conversations. Versus if you do a small dinner or a small event, whatever it is, you have time to go deep with each person there and have real conversations that have lasting impact. Not to mention from a business perspective, you look at the cost of having a booth at one of these crazy events, right?
yeah,
Like 30, 40, $50,000. You can literally go host 10 really, really high quality dinners with 10 prospects and customers each. And you're probably going to meet as many people across those 10 dinners for the same cost as you would have. The difference is you're getting the depth, but also if you're hosting the dinner, you control who's there. So you can say, I want to sell to these 20 people. Let me invite them to a dinner
yeah.
versus going to an event and hoping you meet the right people. You're much more in control of it. And it's more memorable, right?
What's the best event you've been to in the last couple of years?
Arcadia, which I think is what that post you're referencing was about.
Uh,
That to me is like the type of event that will take over in the next 3 to 5 years. Arcadia was cool. It was like a glamping event. So we literally were
yeah,
sleeping in like tents and stuff, and there's only 50, maybe 60 of us. So it was very one thing. Like I got to have deep, meaningful conversations with every single person there and get to know them. And it's been 8 or 9 months since that event, and our shared Slack channel is as active as it was the day before the event. And I've never been to an event where the pre-event Slack channel lives on
that's cool.
that much. And like that just shows like the depth and the quality of the connections that
Yeah.
happened at that event.
Very nice. Very nice. Cool. Then, yeah, I guess we all talk about, I guess, looking at, coming from a sales background and particularly in a revenue role like myself, it's all about metrics, all
Yeah.
about numbers, KPIs, number of calls, number of dials, number of, pipeline, deal stage, all that sort of stuff. How do you convert that to, you met these great people, brilliant, but how are you tracking those? How are you keeping in touch with them? How do you see what the value from that network is? Do you have KPIs and metrics around your audience, your network?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not as much as some people think we should, because once again, I think it's like there is this blend of art and science. If you over science it, over process it, you
Yeah.
actually kill the very reason that this sort of stuff works. And sort of sidebar, I think most sales and marketing teams would be better off intentionally spending 20 to 25% of their budget and time on things that they know are not perfectly trackable or perfectly attributable. I think this obsession over perfect attribution, which by the
Yeah.
way, it's just not possible no matter how much money and time you throw at it. But this obsession over like, how do I do things that are perfectly attributable actually kills a lot of the best ideas before they even have a chance to be tried. So one of my favorite examples, I don't know if you ever saw our purple hoodies. About a year and a half ago, they kind of took over our
I was,
LinkedIn bubble for a
I've
little
seen
while.
them. It was another question I was about to ask you. What swag's next on the list?
It,
Because you've got some
it's
swag game.
but like so that was that all in, including shipping it and everything. It was all in about a $15,000 cost to us. And I was literally on a podcast. I don't know, probably a few weeks ago. Time has no meaning these days, right? And they're asking me, they're like, "How do you know that that campaign worked?" I was like, "It was a year and a half ago, and you're still asking me about it. I don't necessarily need exact numbers on every little thing. Like
Yeah.
it's okay." And I think we've lost this willingness to be okay with like I can show it's working without showing you exactly the dollar amount influenced on pipeline and things like that. Not to say that like there are tons of KPIs you can use around go to network and network creation, right? I think it's a hard question to answer because it kind of one thing go to network is such a broad thing. It depends on like what piece of go to network are we talking about? Are you building partnerships? Are you social selling? Like
Yeah.
you can build metrics, and there are definitely things you should track for every piece of it. Um, when it comes to intros and referrals specifically, we track the same stuff that you would track for deals coming from anywhere else, right? Like time to close, the quality of the deal, and like so we can show that like referrals are better deals, they close more often, etc. We also track the sources of them, so we can say like, hey, well, when Chris makes an intro, that closes 80% of the time. When Mac makes an intro, it only closes 20% of the time. Like, wow, Chris
Mm.
makes much better referrals and intros because once again, there is this human element of like,
Yeah.
how much do the people in your network actually trust what you're saying? Because we found that like the stronger your relationship is to the person you're referring to me, the much more likely that trust is going to transfer and they're going to make a purchase. So it's like you can almost like measure, like I can almost measure the quality of your network based on the quality of the intros and the
Yeah. It's
outcomes of those
interesting.
intros that you're making.
Do you therefore rank your referrers as kind of tier ones, tier twos?
We don't necessarily like explicitly like tier one, tier two in that way, but we definitely rank them as far as like. So I guess this is actually one of the things our tool does transparently is like because we're able to track like, hey, you asked 20 investors for intros last quarter, and we can see that investor A makes better intros than investor B. Then in the future, if you have an intro path where investor A and B could make the intro, well, we're going to recommend you go with A because historically their intros perform better,
Yeah.
right? So it's very much the same as like I send cold emails and it's like, cool, this subject line does better than this subject line. So I'm going to use this subject line more.
Yeah.
Just like emails a channel, calls are a channel, like my network is a channel and I can measure the effectiveness of that channel just like any other channel in my system.
I think, like I said, not a lot of people track it well enough. They don't have it automated. They don't have systems or tools in place to automate it and just make better
Yeah.
use of it. So I definitely think it's a massively missed opportunity across a lot of
Just
businesses.
start tracking to start, right? And like you've built metrics before. Like once you start tracking it, the metrics you should care about will start to reveal themselves. But if
Yeah.
you're not tracking it, you're never going to know what metrics are important to you.
Yeah, 100%. It's like anything, and again, double down where you see success and put more effort,
Yeah.
more budget into those sort of things. Before we wrap up, what's the plans for the business over the next 12 months? But where do you see the market going as well?
So I will say, I mean, right now I think the GTM market is changing so much that anyone who tells you with 100% confidence they know where it's going to be in 12 to 18 months is probably not actually knowing what they're talking about. So I'll go back to go forward. 12 to 18 months ago, when we started selling this new platform after we pivoted, we lost a lot of deals to AI. People be like, oh,
Right.
this is cool, but I'm going to put my new tool budget into this new AI tech, this AI
Mm,
SDR, whatever this thing is, right?
yeah.
and it was like, oh shit, like everyone's just like AI, 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 AI. In the last 3 to 6 months, that pendulum has started to swing back. I think people have seen the overpromise. I'm like, AI has a place. AI is
Yeah, I
incredible.
100% agree.
We use AI in our platform, but like AI is like CGI. If it's truly good, you don't really notice it, and it's only when it's bad enough to take you out of the experience that you notice it. So like all these people are slapping AI on their marketing AI chatbots into their tool, and I think basically the GTM world is going to basically split into two types of people. Basically, like the AI native, like what people call GTM engineers now, and that sort of stuff. But it's also going to have a counterweight, just like every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It's
Yeah.
going to make the rise of the human led, high touch rep significantly more important. And it's because I think a lot of salespeople right now and marketers, honestly, they're kind of in the middle. They are at neither extreme, and that's a dangerous place to be, right?
Yeah.
And I think you kind of have to start to move as an individual. You have to kind of double down on one side or the other if you don't want to get left behind. And companies have to build a strategy for both sides of that because neither side's going away. And the rise of the AI side is actually directly causing, like, as outbound gets, it's easier than ever to personalize and do outbound things. Like the volume is only going up, the
Yeah.
effectiveness is only going down. So the value of a relationship is also then going up as a counter to that.
I agree. I think the human interactions is because everyone's sending out the same AI generated emails, the same AI content, same personalization. It's actually
Yeah.
calling out for I believe, yeah, your network, your human connections can be more
Yeah.
more important than ever.
And it's, have
So
you ever heard the term the tragedy of the commons?
I haven't.
So it's back from like Victorian era England around like shared pastures for sheep and cattle. And the idea was
Okay.
like if all the farmers shared the field, they would all use a little too much of it, and eventually they would overuse it, and now nobody has a field to use. And I think a lot of outbound right now, especially in the age of automation and AI, is like that. Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, email, phones, ads, etc., those are a shared channel, right? Like you're not just competing with yourself to write a better cold email or make a better cold call. You're also competing against everything in my
Yeah.
inbox. And the problem is, even if you're writing perfect emails, perfect, everything's perfect, it's still going to get harder because it only takes a certain number of bad actors abusing the system for everything to get harder. And the beauty of your network is semi-isolated from being impacted by people outside your network, right? If maybe you and I share one investor, maybe that one investor goes, oof, I don't want to help anyone with intros anymore. Mac really turned me off making intros in general. The
Yeah.
damage to your network is limited to that one shared piece. But all the other folks in your network, as long as you're treating them well, they'll keep working with you. And I think it's like your network is the only channel where you have that level of control compared to any other channel in sales and marketing.
I've never really thought about it that way, but yeah, it's an interesting take on it. I say I'm old school. I'm not even that old, but I've always been my job prior to setting up Punch was I was a networker for a company. So my job was taking people
Yeah.
out, networking, building relationships.
Yeah.
So I'm still a big fan. People buy from people, human interaction. We encourage our new biz team. If there's an opportunity to go and do the pitch in person, go and see them, get on the plane, get on the train,
Yeah.
go and do that because there's a higher conversion rate just meeting people. There's water cooler moments. They walk up from the office, all that sort of good stuff. So it's massively important.
Especially when you're selling like big ticket items, right?
Yeah.
25, 50,000, 100, $250,000 a year deals. Like, and I was gonna, again, I a big grain of salt over everything I said here. My experience is very focused on companies that are selling 25,000 and up. Like,
Yeah.
if you're selling 5,000, $10,000 a year, like the mechanics are just inherently different.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Give
Before I
me
let
another
you
week
go,
of LinkedIn content so I don't have to think about it, right?
yeah, yeah. People, I was going to say, where should people check you out? Obviously on LinkedIn. You mentioned you've got a new newsletter you've put together.
Yeah, it's warmrevenue.commsor.com. So it's much deeper stuff than I'd read on LinkedIn. So like my last piece was like 1,200 words deep into like
Cool.
go to network thinking and the math behind it. So I'm trying to do more of like the deep thinking and deep writing around like the actual tactical, how to go to network and what to do and all that sort of stuff.